let's get started this morning because there's much to talk about. Taking a look at Carifesta. You know, Friday coming is the opening ceremony, but today we want to give you some idea of the origins of Carifesta because some of you don't know. That's where we begin this morning, our conversations on CARICOM with Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Comissiong. Ambassador, good morning. Welcome.
Morning, Pearson. Before we go any further, there's one thing I want to say to you, and it's this. One tree, so many leaves, one tree. One river, so many creeks, all going to one sea. One head, so many thoughts, thoughts among which one good one must be. One God, so many ways of worshiping, but one Father. One Caribbean, so many hair types, so many skin colors, so many towns, one people. That is the 1972 poem of a Surinamese poet. Robin Raveles was his official name, but he was also known as Dobru. And that poem became the unofficial anthem of the very first Carifesta that was held in Georgetown, Guyana in 1972.
That's a very poignant poem.
Powerful.
Powerful, powerful indeed. And who would have thought that would have spurred the genesis?
Yeah. Well, the genesis, there's a two-part genesis, and we have to really give kudos to the late Forbes Burnham, because when Guyana became independent in 1966, he had this brainwave to bring, as part of the celebration of independence, to bring the Caribbean writers and artists together in Guyana to have a convention. And out of that convention, you know, we in Barbados, when we became independent in 1966, we held a big cricket match.
Yes.
Barbados against the rest of the world. Well, his idea was to bring the artists and writers together. And out of that meeting in Guyana in 1966 came the idea of an annual Festival of the Arts, Caribbean Festival of the Arts. However, it was not implemented. And in 1970, when Guyana became a republic, he repeated the same exercise. He brought the writers and artists together once again in Guyana. And he said to them, look, this time, you know, let's come up with a concept for a Caribbean Festival of the Arts that will happen. It didn't happen in '66. Let us make it happen now. And so said, so done. And the artists who were there in 1970, who brainstormed this idea and came up with the concept of Carifesta. And it's, incidentally, it's all captured in this book. This book is Georgetown Journal by Andrew Salkey, the Jamaican writer. So he was one of the artists in Guyana in 1970, and he kept a journal, and he produced this book of what happened. But the artists, Kamau Brathwaite, I'll give you a little list. Ian Carew, Austin Tom Clark, Ken Corsby, Michael Gilts, John LaRose, Earl Lovelace, and I want you to remember that name, Earl Lovelace, because he is one of the living legends who will be at this year's Carifesta, right? He was there at the very beginning. Ray Luck, Beryl McBurney, Sheikh Keane from St. Vincent, V.S. Reed from Jamaica, Andrew Salkey, Samuel Selvin, Ivan Van Sertima, Aubrey Williams, A.J. Seymour, and several others. But those are some of the big names that Caribbean people would know. So that's where it began. The writers and artists and painters among them, they came together, they brainstormed it, and they gave that concept and, to the government of Guyana, and that was in 1970. By 1972, the very first Carifesta was held. It was such a success in Guyana that the newly formed CARICOM, you know, we had Carifesta since 1968, but it was transformed to CARICOM in 1973. So the newly formed CARICOM then institutionalized it, made it part of the CARICOM Secretariat to help organize it. And ever since then, we've had these Carifestas. And this one is the 15th. And I would say, to the credit of Barbados, of the 15, Barbados will now be hosting 3
Yes.
of the 15. In fact, the only country that has hosted more than Barbados would be, I'm sure you can guess which country in the Caribbean would have hosted more than Barbados. But not to embarrass you, Trinidad and Tobago.
I got it covered. Got it covered. I will not be embarrassed this morning, indeed. And you're quite right. But to just go back for a moment to the late 60s into the early 70s, 1900 folks, younger children who can't imagine those numbers, and to think that at that time to have those visionaries, but those outstanding performers and artists as well, who are able to put their work out in such important ways that they have a legacy still, and to be able to pull it all together with people who didn't quite catch the vision, and look at what we live now.
Yes, yes. Oh, yes. And I would, I would urge all Caribbean people, if I would urge the governments, this book is such an important book. This book really, this of course is out of print.
Yes.
This book really needs to be reprinted, either by the CARICOM Secretariat or by some of our national governments, because this book captured in 1970 our dreams, our aspirations for the future. We had just come out of colonialism. This book captures the deepest thoughts of our writers, our artists, our political activists, our politicians. And yes, you're quite right. And what they were saying back then is that, look, we are one people. They were saying that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And if we can come together, if we can bring all of our artists, our writers, if we can bring our people together in this one gathering where we celebrate what is uniquely Caribbean, and we interact with each other, and we, out of that kind of intermingling, that intermingling of creativity, that Caribbean identity, we foster that Caribbean identity, you know. And the great Kamau Braffett, the great, who played a big part in organizing the thought that produced Carifesta, but he also attended the first Carifesta, and he wrote these series of articles for the then Barbados Advocate. He shared this document with me, but he said, and let me quote him, "Carifesta, I said in 1972, after the first Guyana event, was one of the most important events since emancipation. And from the cultural point of view, the most important event since emancipation. Since the only time artists from all over the Caribbean have been able to meet together in one place for a common purpose over a fair period of time, and not just meet themselves, but, and this really was the beauty, able to meet also in the same space and for the same purpose, a pan-Caribbean audience or public." So he was emphasizing it's not just the artists, but it's also all those thousands of Caribbean people who will be coming to Barbados to be part of that meeting. So Carifesta is this grand meeting of our artists, but also of our people. And this Carifesta, we are going to also have a meeting of many of our government leaders and officials. So it is that great periodic melting pot where we come together and we explore what it means to be Caribbean, and we foster that sense of a Caribbean personality, those values, that artistry that will help us to navigate our way in a very, very challenging and difficult world.
You used the word I like, explore, because at the time with the inception or the thought of Carifesta, nations were exploring independence, exploring what it meant to be on one's own, cut off from pretty much the navel string of mummy in England. And so to be able to navigate one's way through it all, and to not stumble upon, but deliberately anchor it in the creative arts. Not in the politics alone, but in the creative arts, for the bringing together of people and with a purpose, bringing together thoughts and ideas, because it's those creatives who spurred different points of view. And I'm sure for a lot of us, as we look back now, we say thank you. But at the same time, juxtapose what happened then with what's happening now, and the relevance of Carifesta now to be able to, again, to create the space for dreams and different thoughts, and setting the bar even further. I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating what happens in Barbados over the next 10 days, knowing our history.
Well, I mean, back then, in 1970, when these artists and writers came together, the idea, I mean, the Caribbean integration movement was still very, very fragile. You know, the Federation had collapsed in 1962. There had been a great sense of despondency. We had managed to claw back something with Carifesta, but the idea of the integrated Caribbean had not yet solidly taken root. I mean, CARICOM had not even been formed. So there was that fragility back then. And what happened at that first Carifesta was that we were saying, look, you know, there's this substructure of our folk culture, these things that belong to us, that in that colonial era were stigmatized, were looked down upon, and we were being encouraged by our colonial masters to be this mimic men of Europe. And and they were saying, the artists were saying, we know, as newly independent nations, we must embrace who we truly are. We must embrace our folk culture. We must give it dignity, and we must bring it into all of those official structures. So that was a very fragile thing back then. Fast forward 50-something years later, we now have a full-fledged, solid, institutionalized Caribbean integration movement. I mean, you just mentioned it. Tonight, the Caribbean Broadcasting Union is having its annual conference, its opening ceremony here in Barbados. Today, this week, you know, as we look forward to the opening of Carifesta on Friday, meetings are going on all across Barbados, Dominica, Belize, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as we prepare to implement, to roll out the full freedom of movement on the 1st of October. So Caribbean integration is happening. It has become institutionalized. We have recognized our folk culture. We are no longer ashamed of it. In fact, we have embraced it. Our calypso, our reggae, our landship, our tuck band, you name it. But I think for me now, the challenge for us, yes, we have come a long way since 1970. We have embraced our Caribbean art forms and our sense of a Caribbean identity. However, the question for me is, have we done justice to those art forms? Have we preserved the integrity? When we look at where our calypso is today, does it have the integrity? When we look at our reggae, when we look at so many areas of our expression, and we are going to need that integrity if we are going to face the very serious challenges that are bearing down upon us as a Caribbean region and civilization.
Taking a look at rooting our knowledge of Carifesta in the origins of Carifesta, in the people who started it, the movement forward, and the journey we've traveled thus far. And so, Ambassador, at the break, we were talking a little bit about whether or not we as a Caribbean people have really grown up to the idea of what Carifesta is and embraced fully the power that the creatives have really in their hands to be able to make a difference.
Yeah, well, I was making the point that I think that we have. We have accepted who we are. We have embraced our folk art forms, our folk culture. We have dignified them. We've brought them into the mainstream. They identify who we are. My concern is that along the way, many of those forms of expression have lost their original integrity and purpose. And we can see it, for example, you can even see it in some of our musical forms that losing their way, too much of an emphasis simply on bacchanalia and so forth. And the point I was making is that in this period, when we are facing so many challenges, we are going to need our arts to be at their highest integrity, and our artists to be at their highest integrity, because what the arts and artists help us to do is to make values and principles and identity a deep part of our consciousness, such that we think and feel with them, right? Yes. And this was very clear back in 1970, because the people who most crafted Carifesta were the thinkers, the writers, the thinkers. And in fact, I think A.J. Seymour, back in 1970, the great Guyanese writer and editor, he spoke for them when he said, and I just quote him, he said, "The creative artists of the Caribbean have a very special cultural burden to bear and a very demanding role to play in the total social and political development in the area." In the area, he means the region. They are involved in an unwritten educational program and praxis for all the people. In short, the Caribbean cultural contributors must see themselves as a vanguard who will help to liberate the creative energies of the Caribbean people and help all our societies to create a new life out of the chaos of underdevelopment. Help our societies to create a new life out of the chaos of underdevelopment. And that is still the mission of our creative artists. And we need them, and the case I'm making is that we need them now more than ever. We need the arts now more than ever. When I was asked to contribute to the big conversations, one of the topics I put forward and that was embraced for the symposium was the role of our arts and our artists in helping us to combat violent crime. Helping us to combat, because the question of crime is on the lips of all Caribbean people right across the region. What role do the arts and the artists have to play? Because as I come back to the point, we all need values and principles to guide us and to shape our behavior. But how do you instill values and principles in people? Do you simply preach at them? Do I simply say, thou shalt not steal, I simply preach it at you? Well, preaching may help to some extent, but if you can get your people to absorb great works of art, great novels, profound poetry, great music, where it helps them to internalize these values so that it becomes part of their internal makeup, then they can express it. So the arts and artists have a very big role to play, not only in instilling values and principles, but in helping to clarify the way forward. What is the way forward?
And in all of this, because I could well imagine back in the early 70s, you have to wrap this idea of Carifesta in an image that people would want to associate with, and to be able to propagate as it goes forward. And so I know we've been able to find some images of some of the first symbols
yes.
of Carifesta. If we could share them now, and I would want you to reflect on them with us for just a little while, so that our people begin to understand. If you could, with the production crew, there it is. This one says, "Welcome to Carifesta 72. Forbes Burnham himself, look at the hand.
Yes.
Look at the rising sun that flows from that hand."
Yes, and that hand is a black or brown colored hand, representing, making it clear that this is the Caribbean people. This is the power that we wield as a people, and we embracing that optimism of that rising sun. You know?
Some of the faces of the others who would have shown up, no doubt, to stand,
Yes.
to sit really before the symbol of who we are as a people.
There's the Prime Minister, Forbes Burnham then. There was also the new President of Guyana in that front row, and some of the other dignitaries. Yes.
And these are some of the things that we would know, and we need to remember as well as we talk a little bit about Carifesta. If we want to understand its origin, we need to get the book and read the book. If we want to understand more about its history, we need to see the images as well.
That's the stamp, the Guyana stamp that they issued to commemorate and celebrate Carifesta. The brown hand embracing the rising sun.
Yeah.
You know, that rising Caribbean civilization and all the power inherent in that sun that we embrace. So that's a powerful image, you know.
Indeed so.
And so that was 1972. We first in Barbados hosted Carifesta in 1981. And I have brought along 2 artifacts from that night. I was 21 years old in 1981. And as a young 20, I devoured that Carifesta. I had a little motorcycle, a little chappy, and I was all across Barbados taking in everything. And one of the things that so impressed me back then was the market where we were able to purchase books. And these are books that I purchased in 1981. This is Growing Up Stupid Under the Union Jack.
That's a classic.
By Austin Tom Clark. This one is One a Week with Water by the Vincentian poet Sheikh Keane. And these were books put out by Cuba's Casa de las Americas. Remember, House of the Americas, the Cuban publishing house. And Cuba came to Carifesta in 1981 with a massive delegation, including books.
Yes.
And so I still have these books since 1981. And I just want to make the point that I want us to focus, you know, we tend to focus a lot, and many Carifestas focus a lot on the music, the dance, the performing arts, even the visual arts. And sometimes we forget where it all began. It began with the writers. It began with the books, the thinkers. And I hope that and trust that at this Carifesta, and I know that the literary arts will play a very substantial role at this Carifesta. I was just reading this morning that St. Kitts is bringing a massive delegation of 80 people and then 30 young people. And the lead figure in that delegation is a 9-year-old writer by the name of Corinne Clark. And I was amazed to read her story, that she is seen as the star. This 9-year-old writer is seen as the star of the St. Kitts delegation. So just to make the point that I want to encourage people to come out and enjoy all of Carifesta, but pay some special attention to the literary arts, to the books. Come, do like me. Come and purchase a book at Carifesta 2025, so that 25 years from now, 2050, you too will be able to pull out your book and say, this is my historical artifact from Carifesta 2025.
Indeed so. It's a great offering. It's a great menu from which you can draw Carifesta 15. And we're looking forward to exploring even more of what the menu holds for all of us. But today we took the time to root your consciousness about Carifesta in the history, the origins of Carifesta. S. Royal says, good morning, Barbados. Good to you. I'm so excited to be a part of Carifesta 15 and to represent my country. Which is your country? S. Royal. Is your country Barbados or somewhere else from around the region or the world? just let us know indeed, and we'll be happy to share that information with you. But to root your knowledge in the origins of it, on who started it, the people who are part of that beginning, and what did they use to start it, literature, the expressive, the arts, indeed. And so as we visit the Carifesta village and the marketplace and wherever we go, indeed, purchase and remember. Purchase, remember, share. Thank you, Ambassador, as well.
My pleasure, Pearson.
As always.
Thanks.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.